Do you think the Walther PDP Pro is worth 800 bucks? In this case, the PDP Pro is a gun that is jam-packed with a ton of features and honestly everything you could want straight out of the box. And in this video, I will give you guys my honest thoughts about what I do and don't like about this firearm, which, spoiler alert, I actually think it's pretty fantastic and it won me over a lot more than I thought it would. Of course, there are some cons and we'll be sure to talk about all of those as well. But again, it's worth asking that question, is it worth the money? And if not, what should you buy instead? Let's get started. And since I just started this channel, if you find this content helpful, please subscribe. I would love to know if this is helpful and if it's worth continuing making some of these reviews. And let's be honest, YouTube does not like people talking about firearms on their platform, so this video will probably never be monetized. Give it a thumbs up. Anything to help the algorithm goes a long way. Now, if you're not already familiar, the PDP Pro takes the tried and true platform of the PDP and it adds all of those aftermarket upgrades that you could want out of the box, which I can tell you right off the gate, I think this makes it a really attractive offer, especially if you were to price out all of the upgrades separately by themselves. In this case, you get Walther's spectacular dynamic performance trigger, which is just amazing. It's probably one of the best striker fire triggers out there. It's got a really light, clean, crisp 90-degree break, and that alone costs right around 200 bucks. And if you've never tried the flat face trigger compared to the traditional curved trigger, it does make a big difference. And out of the box, the trigger typically breaks right around 4.5 pounds, and it definitely could be lighter if it was something that you wanted to use just solely as a range toy. However, the beauty of this gun and what I think makes it so attractive is the fact that it can flex into so many spaces. In this case, it can work for home defense, for concealed carry, for a range toy, for a duty weapon. The list goes on and on. And of course, the trigger is not the only improvement to this gun. They've also added a 4.6-inch threaded barrel, so if you want to add a suppressor or a compensator from Parker Mountain or Harrington Arms, you easily can. And as is becoming the norm in 2025, this slide does also come optics ready. Now, the only con in this case is you do get a voucher with the PDP Pro where you can request a plate from Walther and then they will mail it to you, and it typically takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get. I don't know if you're like me, but when I get a new gun, I'm pretty darn excited to put everything on it and get it looking the way I want it to. So in this case, you can always just buy a plate off of Amazon as well. And of course, there are some other notable upgrades like the flared aluminum Magwell, and you do get 3 magazines right out of the box, and they all have base plates included with them. And I absolutely love this. I wish more manufacturers included 3 magazines out of the box because, let's be honest, 2 never feels like enough and 3 just feels like that sweet spot. And as far as overall ergonomics, this gun feels incredibly balanced. I'll talk about more of this in the shooting section, but I just shoot it really well. And I think a lot of it has to do with the 4.6-inch barrel and just the balance between the slide and then the frame. And with the frame, that grip not only being really aggressive and having awesome texture, but that Magwell pushing my hand up underneath the trigger guard and the beaver tail to really just get an awesome grip on this gun. So enough about the specs, let's go ahead and shoot this thing, and then we'll compare it against some other popular options on the market. All right, so we're at the range. My brother and I have had a lot of fun just shooting, and I really quickly want to just give you guys kind of initial impressions with this Walther and let you know what I like about it. As somebody that has had pretty minimal experience shooting it, I think it's really good to just let you know how it feels in the hand, what I like about it, what I don't like about it, just has kind of like an initial gut check. So let's go ahead and let's shoot some steel. All righty. Okay, so, I mean, right off the bat, I don't know if you can get kind of a close above this, but I think the first thing I really enjoy is just like how much that grip really just kind of cuts into my hand. Reason I really enjoy that is it's gonna help you just control the firearm in a really awesome way. So rather than having to upgrade the grips aftermarket, add Talon grips, you're not gonna have to do that, or at least personally, I wouldn't. I feel like with the PDP Pro, it's really bitey, it's aggressive, but I wouldn't say it's abrasive in a bad way. I feel like it's one of those things when you really press into it, it's gonna give you that support that you want, but it's not gonna feel like it's just destroying your hands. Oh no! Okay, I mean, that trigger is awesome. And I would honestly say, I mean, Canik, Walther, obviously Canik kind of copied Walther's original trigger design. They're both fantastic. It's a really crisp, clean 90-degree break. And what I really like too is that tactile kind of reset. It's audible, you can feel it. And so it just makes those follow-up shots pretty fast. I mean, I'm able to hit, 3-inch piece of steel from 21 feet and bounce back and forth with it with relative ease. Yeah, I mean, that feels awesome. Great gun, it's fun to shoot. I feel like it would do just about anything that you would want it to. I mean, honestly, whether you're going to be using it as a fun range toy and you want to throw a suppressor on it, if you're going to use it for home defense, if it's going to be something that you conceal with, it's obviously on the larger side, but it can kind of flex into any of those, and it feels super competent. It's one of those that's just like quality. You pick it up, you can feel it. So I'd say initial impressions, it's a fun gun. And it has the cool factor, which is always nice. Now, as far as other comparable options out there, I think there's a lot that we can choose from. We're pretty spoiled in 2025, and a lot of manufacturers have really awesome options out there. I do think that it goes without saying that Walther's got a pretty spectacular reputation and customer service and long-standing history of quality. And I can also just tell you from my own subjective opinion, out of the other handguns I own, that it does feel really premium. However, because I'm not sponsored by Walther and in an attempt to stay neutral, here are some other options that I think really work well and can be found typically at a much more affordable price while offering a lot of the same feature sets. And to start, I think the Springfield Echelon gets really close. Of course, it doesn't have all of the same features. However, it does have a pretty awesome trigger out of the box. It's got a great grip texture. The slide serrations are going to be super aggressive. It's going to be optics ready, and it does have an internal fire control unit where in the future, once more models come out, you're going to be able to swap that frame and get a different size with just one serialized part. And those can typically be found for right around $600. However, I will also say Canik has a lot of really great options, and they're really affordable. They've definitely gone up over the years. However, their old Combat Elite was almost an exact copy of this PDP Pro. It had a lot of the same features. However, their SF or their SFT series gets pretty dang close to accomplishing a lot of what Walther is doing, but at half of the price. And another tried and true option would be something like the Glock 19, but because I don't own one, I only own the Ruger RXM, I actually think that gets closer than an original Glock does. Specifically because now Ruger offers a threaded barrel option, it comes optics ready, it does have an integrated Magwell, and you have the interchangeability of all Glock Gen 3 parts for the Ruger RXM. So finding base plates, finding magazines, upgrading your trigger is all going to be super easy. But I will argue you're never going to get an awesome Walther trigger on a Glock style pistol. It's just not possible, doesn't exist. And because there's so many options, I want to wrap this up quickly, but I also have to mention brands like Smith & Wesson and the M&P 9 Mark II series, which you can get an awesome pistol that's super durable, reliable. It's going to be high quality for around $500. And if you're willing to spend a little bit more money, of course, there's the H&K VP9. The list goes on, and you guys can definitely let me know what I missed down in the comments below. Now to circle back to that question at the beginning of this video, do you think this gun is worth $800? Now I'll talk more about the pros and cons here in a second, but to give you an answer, I do think it's worth $800. As much as I don't like it, that is absolutely the top of the price point for a polymer striker-fired handgun, but it does come with a lot of really awesome upgrades, and I just am super impressed with the shootability of this platform and how comfortable it is and how well I just bonded with it. And in this case, I definitely think you can spend a lot of your money elsewhere, and I by no means think everybody should own this gun. You have to find what you like, what works well for you. Some people may like the original PDP design, some people might like Canik. Whatever it is, my recommendation is always find what you like, shoot a ton, and find the thing that's going to inspire you to want to shoot more. Now, to talk about some of the cons or the dislikes of this firearm, I will say right off the bat, there are a couple of things that I definitely do not think should be on an $800 gun. In this case, first and foremost, it does have a plastic guide rod. I know there's some debate out there of does it matter, should it be metal? In this case, it's $800. Walther should absolutely put a metal guide rod inside of there and not a plastic one. I live in the Midwest, it gets cold, I don't want to chance anything. Another piece would be the really bad, just out of the box factory sights. I think the assumption is most people are gonna run an optic on this, but if you plan not to, you're gonna have to upgrade those sights. And then lastly, the optics plate cover on the slide is also made of plastic and it's not a piece of metal like what would normally be on a slide. And honestly, those are really my only cons. I think they're pretty nitpicky and they're pretty small to begin with, but they're definitely not something that should be on this expensive of a handgun. And if we are being realistic, if you were planning to upgrade the sights or buy a red dot, you're also planning to upgrade the guide rod, the springs, you're probably looking closer to $1,000 to $1,200 pretty dang quickly. So in summation, I think if you're willing to spend the money and you want a really premium feeling handgun that shoots awesome, has some fantastic upgrades right out of the box, the Walther PDP Pro is a great option. And if you don't want to spend that much money and you're looking to get more bang for your buck, I definitely recommend Canic or tons of the other options that I mentioned earlier in this video. So let me know down below, do you own the Walther PDP Pro or any variation? And if not, what'd you buy instead? I'll see you guys next time.